There's one chart that you need to see if you're thinking about a Roth conversion. It shows you when the taxes that you've paid finally start saving you money. It's called the break-even point, and if you haven't seen this visual before, it might completely change the way that you think about Roth conversions. Managing taxes in retirement is a big piece of why we plan to begin with, but unfortunately, I don't think enough attention is given to the taxes along the way. So, for example, think about the most common approach to Roth conversions. A lot of people aim to fill up the 12% or 22% bracket each year before their required minimum distributions start, or they stop converting once they hit a certain IRMA threshold. And honestly, I can understand why. That approach is simple, it's logical, and it feels like a smart way to stay tax efficient year by year. But let's call it what it is: short term tax management. It focuses on minimizing this year's tax bill and not building a long term strategy. So it's tactical, not strategic. And it can miss opportunities or create future problems by ignoring how today's decisions play out over the next 10 to 20 or even 30 years. You know, one of my favorite ways to illustrate the long term impact of Roth conversions is with this simple break even chart that compares cumulative taxes between doing a conversion and not doing a conversion. It's a very powerful visual that shows you not just if a conversion saves you money, but when it does. And that timing can make all the difference in how you feel about the trade off of paying taxes for a conversion. Now, I'll say two things up front. Like most break evens, you can't use this in isolation. Any break even analysis gives you a good piece of data to consider to make a comprehensive decision, but it cannot be the only thing you use. And the second thing is using a tax break even analysis is really only useful if you're converting with the goal of reducing taxes over your life expectancy. If you're doing Roth conversions because you think tax rates will rise, or you want to leave a more efficient inheritance to a spouse or children, then this lens doesn't apply as directly. But since most people pursue Roth conversions to reduce lifetime taxes, this does have a pretty wide application. So, for example, let's look at this couple. They're both 62 and they've recently retired. They have $1 million in their pre-tax IAS, 300,000 in their taxable account. And for that, I used a cost basis of $200,000. And together, their full retirement age Social Security benefit is $5,000 a month. Now, they need $8,000 in net income per month, and they wanted to plan all the way out through age 95. Now, this couple has all the key ingredients to strongly consider Roth conversions. They have a relatively low monthly income need and money saved in a taxable brokerage account. Now, to integrate all the moving pieces, it's almost impossible to not use software. But every piece of software that I've ever used has some fairly significant limitations. And one of my biggest complaints is how financial planning software tends to obsess over the finish line. What plan is going to give you the most in assets and the least amount in taxes at the end of the plan? So, for example, when I plug this couple into our super fancy and expensive financial planning software, here's what it tells me. As compared to not converting at all, converting to the top of the 10% bracket results in just over $590,000 in additional tax-adjusted ending assets, and it saves just over $285,000 in lifetime taxes. Now, if we increase the conversion to the top of the 12% bracket, the ending balance is $473,000 higher. Again, that's tax adjusted, but lifetime tax savings increases to $726,879. But again, what you have to remember when you're looking at those headline numbers there is that's using the end of plan value as the measure of success. And I don't think that's the right way to look at it because financial planning isn't just about what you die with. It's how your decisions impact your life along the way. A strategy that looks great at 95 might come with years of unnecessary tax drag or missed opportunities earlier on. And that's why we need to look at when the tax savings actually show up, not just how big the number is at the end. And that's why I like to use a break-even chart in the plans we create. So the first step in building this break-even chart is to start with what someone would pay if they did no Roth conversions. And then we want to compare that to a few different Roth conversion scenarios. So for example, this line shows cumulative taxes. If this couple, the one that we were just talking about, did no Roth conversions, it starts out modestly, but then you can see once RMDs kick in, it has that sharp increase. Now let's compare that to converting up to the 12% bracket. So taxes start higher in the early years, but around age 85, the total taxes paid break even with the no conversion path. And after that, the Roth scenario stops adding new taxes while the other path just keeps on climbing higher. And then by age 95, the no conversion path results in over $700,000 more in lifetime taxes. So instead of just looking at the finish line, now you can see when the tax savings begin and decide how you feel about the trade-off of paying more now to save more later. So next, let's look at a smaller conversion amount, and we're going to go back to the 10% bracket. Now this shifts the break-even point much earlier from age 85 to age 78. Now sure, you're converting less, but by age 78, cumulative taxes break even with the no conversion path, and it remains lower for the rest of retirement. Now, keep in mind, we've only looked at federal taxes. If your state taxes income as well, that needs to be included too. And you can't stop there either. Larger conversions could also push you into higher Medicare premiums or trigger the net investment income tax. And all of that should be included when you're calculating the true cost of converting. You know, I think that break-even charts really help to reframe the Roth decision. Once you can see the timing and trajectory of taxes, it becomes much easier to make an informed choice. Now, again, is this the only thing to consider when you're evaluating a Roth conversion? Absolutely not. No. But it does give you a much clearer picture than just looking at a single year's tax projection. Now, if you're wondering whether Roth conversions make sense in your plan, try running your numbers out. Most of the major financial planning tools show a year-by-year tax summary, and some of those will even let you export that into Excel or Google Sheets, and then you can run some of the formulas to figure out the cumulative amounts and then compare those. Thanks for watching.